Hello, and welcome back to the C1 Cybersecurity Posture Assessment. This video will cover questions 109 through 118. Does the district monitor legislative changes and industry activity to ensure security policy is updated in consideration of changes that are pertinent and applicable to the district? Score 0 if your organization does not monitor legislative changes. Score 1 if your organization relies on notifications from state agencies. Score 2 if your organization regularly receives quarterly or more frequent notice from a state agency or from a notification service. Score 3 if your organization tracks legislative changes itself and uses a newsletter or service for pending changes. Or 4 if you track legislative changes yourself, plus religiously follow multiple sources for notifications. Pause the video now in order to consider and record your answer before continuing. Does the district evaluate cloud providers prior to purchasing services to ensure that their security measures are in line with district requirements? Score 0 if your organization does not use cloud providers or makes no effort to ensure their security measures are adequate. Score 1 if you allow service providers to self-certify. Score 2 if you perform informal and infrequent cloud service provider checks. Score 3 if you perform informal and regular cloud service provider checks. Or 4 if you have a formal documented evaluation process and it is used consistently. Pause the video now in order to consider and record your answer before continuing. Does the district conduct post-incident reviews after a cybersecurity incident? Score 0 if your organization never conducts a post-incident review for cybersecurity incidents. Score 1 if your organization rarely conducts a post-incident review and it is an informal process. Score 2 if your organization conducts a post-incident review more often than not. 3 if you almost always conduct a post-incident review and use a formal documented process. Or 4 if 100% of cybersecurity incidents receive a formal documented post-incident review and incident handling procedures are updated as needed. Pause the video now in order to consider and record your answer before continuing. Does the district analyze existing systems and applications as well as new systems and applications prior to purchase to determine if existing controls provide adequate mitigation of current and anticipated threats? Score 0 if your organization does not analyze systems to determine if existing controls are adequate. Score 1 if you randomly and infrequently look at existing and prospective systems to determine the adequacy of existing controls. Score 2 if you analyze about half of new systems before purchase and existing systems every 2 to 3 years. Score 3 if you analyze all new systems before purchase and existing systems annually. Or 4 if you always consistently analyze new systems and annually analyze existing systems for control adequacy. Pause the video now in order to consider and record your answer before continuing. Does the district evaluate third-party providers and external vendors to ensure that district security requirements are met for transmission, storage, processing, and management of district data by the third party? Score 0 if your organization does not evaluate third-party providers to ensure their security measures are in line with district requirements. Score 1 if you allow service providers to self-certify. Score 2 if you perform informal and infrequent third-party service provider checks. 3 if you perform informal and regular service provider compliance checks. Or 4 if you have a formal documented evaluation process and it is used consistently. Pause the video now in order to consider and record your answer before continuing. Does the district require language in contracts and/or service level agreements to protect the district from impactful changes to the secure handling of district data during the contract? Score 0 if your organization does not require language in contracts and/or service level agreements to protect the district from impactful changes to secure handling of district data. Score 1 if you allow service providers to self-certify. Score 2 if you have an informal and/or undocumented ad hoc process. 3 if you have a documented process that includes a thorough contract review. Or 4 if you perform a formal review using a documented process and annually review multi-year contracts. Pause the video now in order to consider and record your answer before continuing. The next 4 questions relate to in-house development of software and applications development. If the district does not conduct in-house development, you are finished with questions 109 through 118. Score 0 for each of the next 4 questions, 115 through 118, and the next video will be Cyber Posture Assessment Slide 13, which you can begin now or wait to a later date to continue the Cybersecurity Posture Assessment. Otherwise, the question is, does the district establish and maintain a secure application development process addressing secure application design standards, secure coding practices, application and security testing procedures, developer training, vulnerability management, security of third-party code? Score 0 if your organization does not maintain a secure application development process. Otherwise, score 1.5 point for every element that is included in your development process, plus 1.5 point if your development process is documented, plus 1.5 point if your development process is reviewed and updated annually. Pause the video now in order to consider and record your answer before continuing. Does the district use up-to-date and trusted third-party software components from established and proven frameworks and libraries that provide adequate security? Score 0 if your organization does not use up-to-date and trusted third-party components. Score 1 if your organization partially uses up-to-date and trusted third-party components. Score 2 if your organization uses updated and trusted third-party components for the most part. 3 if you use updated and trusted third-party components almost completely. Or 4 if your organization has an optimal implementation using updated and trusted third-party components. Pause the video now in order to consider and record your answer before continuing. Does the district maintain separate environments for production and non-production systems? Score 0 if your organization does not maintain separate environments for production and non-production systems. Score 1 if your organization maintains separate environments for production and non-production systems for about 25% of your development platforms. Score 2 if you maintain separate environments for about 50% of your development platforms. 3 if you maintain separate environments for about 75% of your development platforms. Or 4 if your organization maintains separate environments for 100% of your development platforms. Pause the video now in order to consider and record your answer before continuing. Does the district scan a system for known vulnerabilities, quantifying the vulnerabilities risk level based on the system exposure to them, and prepare risk plans for each vulnerability? This would include looking at explicit error checking, size, data type, acceptability range or formats, turning off unprotected ports and services, removing unnecessary programs and files, renaming or removing default accounts. Score 1.5 point if a process exists, or 1 point if a process exists and it is documented. Add 1.5 point for each of the 4 listed elements that is addressed in your process. Add 1 bonus point if the process is reviewed and updated annually. Pause the video now in order to consider and record your answer before continuing. You're finished with questions 109 through 118. The next video will be Cyber Posture Assessment Slide 13, which is the last video in this series and will complete your cybersecurity posture assessment. You can start that now or you can take a break and continue with the posture assessment later.